This is a chessvideos.com training video, and this is a short guide to mating with two bishops against just a king. So the central idea in these kind of endings is first you want to force the enemy king to the edge of the board. And in my opinion, generally the best way you want to do that is by centralizing your king and your bishops, because if your king is in the center of the board, almost wherever the opposing king is going to be closer to the edge, and then you slowly force him to the edge. So that's the first goal, is to get him towards the edge, then we want to get him to the corner, and then we'll get the checkmating position. So we'll use this as our starting position, and since the bishop is under attack, obviously we got to move it. So bishop d4, and we notice that one of the keys of two bishop endings is that we use the bishops together like this to cut off the king, since they cover all the dark squares and all the light squares, so it's sort of like a line across the center of the board right now. So say black plays king c7. Now we're going to start to centralize our king. King c6, king c4, and already we're approaching the king. Say the king, if he goes back, we'll move forward again, and the king is that much closer to the edge of the board. So after king c4, king d6 seems logical, trying to keep the king in the center. But now we play a move, we want to force him away from the center of the board, and so by centralizing our bishop a little bit more, we cut off the e6 square, and now the king has to either come here or go back. If the king comes here, we're able to play something like bishop e5, cutting off the king again, forcing it this way. And then we'll use a technique to get to the edge that we'll see in the main line, so we'll go back. Bishop f5, king e7, king d5. And now here's the key idea with these kinds of positions, is that if the king tries to come here and not go to the edge, we can play here, and because these bishops are cutting off the king's flight squares, the king has no choice but to run to the edge of the board. And now the king's on the edge. And so we'll jump back a little bit. After king d5, now, so if we saw king f7, just king d6. So king e8 straight away. Now I'll play king d6, and we've achieved our short-term goal. Well, we're about to, because after king f7, we can play king d7, and now king f8, king e6, and now we have the key. The king is on the edge of the board. So now we want to force the king to the corner. Once we get our king, the opposing king, to the edge of the board, and notice we did that by centralizing our king, and we didn't even really move these two bishops since then. Well, we moved this one, but you wanted to cut the king off to half the board and then use your king to force him to the edge. Now we're going to force him to the corner. So we want to force him towards this corner since that's closer. So let's cut off this square, and we can do that with the bishop. The dark bishop b6. Now the king can't come here, so the only move is king f8. Now king f6. Now king e8 trying to stay out of the corner. We need a way to cut off the e8 square. And if the bishop were on any other square on this diagonal back here, we could just play something like bishop c6, check, and force the king away. We can't play bishop d7, obviously, because the king would take it, so we need to give away a tempo. Bishop g4. Now we see that the king has no option but to come to f8, and now we play bishop d7. Again, we kind of use the bishops in tandem to cut off these squares and slowly sort of roll the king down the board, as we'll see. King g8, now king g6, and now you'll see what I mean. This is one of the main mating ideas. Once you get the king to the edge in this manner, you just use the bishops in tandem to slowly force the king into mate. And as we can see, checkmate. And to go back a bit, after king g6, if instead of king f8, black had played king h8, here we just play bishop c5, cutting off the king, king g8, bishop e6. So we see that what we do is we force the king to the edge, and then we use the bishops in this manner, just rolling them down the board like this to force the king into the corner and then get this mating position. So this is pretty much the primary mating position in these endings, is you use the bishops in this way. Now there is one other important mating position, and that is this one, which you're about to see. This is a little bit different. It's when you've got the bishop here as opposed to back here, and it looks a little bit different. Now we need to get our bishop to d7, like in other lines, and so what we can do is, like in the other position, we give away a tempo. Force king b8, and now we could play here, as we did in the other game. And now we don't want to play here because that'd be stalemate, but if we just come back, now the king has to come here, and then we have mate in the traditional way, like we just looked at. However, there is a slightly faster way to do it from this position, and that involves, this is another mating idea, it's good to know this one too, and involves bishop a6. Now king a8, bishop b7, king b8, bishop d6. This is the other important mating position in bishop endings. So just keep that in mind. Bishop b5, bishop a6, a8, b7, mate. So this is an important one where you check the king out of the corner and you get this sort of position where the king has no legal moves and then you deliver checkmate. So that's the sort of quick guide to mating with two bishops against a king. Just remember that you want to force the king to the edge of the board, then force him to the corner. And the best way to force the king to the edge of the board is to use these bishops to cut the board in half, centralize your king, and then you can force him to the edge by taking away his options like that. So, hopefully this is the kind of thing that if you just practice a couple times against a friend, you'll get the hang of quickly. The positions I've shown, this is the fastest way to mate from the starting position was what I showed. Although, you have quite a few moves. It only takes, 16 moves or 17 moves at the most from any position to mate with two bishops. So you've got quite a few moves to, if you're not sure about the exact method, but hopefully this is a clear idea, and if you have any questions, feel free to post. So that's the chessvideos.com guide to mating with two bishops.